You know, I think a lot of the vegan bodybuilders have figured out a really good balance of what they need as far as supplementation and food. I think that with any diet, you can get strong and big if you do it right.
From Anarchapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I've got a great first-time guest coming on. His name is Greg Papanicolas, which in Spanish means Santa Claus. That's a Greek name, I believe. And he actually was at Anarchapulco and he did a talk, I believe. And he calls himself, he's an AnarchyLifter is sort of his brand. He's actually a physical training coach. He actually does a lot of it online, which is quite interesting. We'll get into that because that's also something quite interesting for a lot of people who want to work remotely from places. You can do so many things online now. But aside from that, he also talks about how physical fitness and things like that is really tied to anarchy. It's about freeing your body, and we talk a lot about freeing your mind, but also freeing your body. And things like meditation, yoga, all those sort of things are kind of related to all that. And I think it's really important. I think people really underestimate how important just physical activity is at the very basics, but also getting your body into good shape is really important. It's one of the most important things. Your body is your temple. You've got your mind, your body, and your soul, and you can work on your mind and your body, and a lot of people kind of forget about that. So happy to have him on, and I think he's in the District of Criminals area or somewhere around that area, but great to have you on, Greg. And the first question, how did you become an anarchist?
Yeah, wow. My sort of path to anarchy was pretty, I would say, conventional, the way a lot of people sort of find themselves eventually ending up there. My family was, I guess, considered right-wing, conservative, Republican, but I grew up in DC, so I had plenty of liberal friends, liberal people around me. And I knew that I was getting attacked sort of from both sides, and it didn't make any sense to me. So, I found like the outliers in politics. I found the Jesse Venturas, I found the Ron Pauls, I found the people that sort of spoke the language, but didn't quite speak the whole language. And, I think probably around, I want to say 2013 or 2014, somebody showed me a video from Larkin Rose. And, basically I used that video to sort of motivate me to buy his book. And when I bought his book, everything started to open up and make sense, about coercion and force and, how we were going to, become free eventually, free of, coercion and force. And I think that particular book and that particular idea resonated with me better. I just needed to be nudged a little bit more. So, I think through that self-examination and that, work, just sort of working through, I guess like the contradictions in your head, you eventually find yourself, an anarchist. And, it allowed me to be self-reliant and take chances and start, my own company. So that's where I ended up.
That's great, all from a Larkin Rose video, and it's amazing that how just little things like that can change people's lives. And Larkin's one of the best at doing that. He's so good at explaining the basics of how this all works and kind of waking you up from essentially what is brainwashing that's been put into people since the time they're born. They go to their 12 years of government indoctrination camps, turn on the television programming, they just talk about the president did this, president did that, just like North Korea. It's the exact same thing. And Larkin, if you get access to his videos and you're open to it, very quickly you can kind of wake up from it. So that's great that you did. And big reason I wanted to have you on is talk about things like physical fitness and things like that. I think it's so important. And what I've noticed myself is I've kind of had you could say depression, definitely a real bad depression a few years ago. And at certain points in my life, quite bad depression. And I really kind of realized a lot of the times when I have it, I'm not really physically training very much. I'm not exercising at all. I'm not even going outside for a walk and walk the dogs and things like that. And, a big part of just basic stuff for people out there, if you don't know, they don't teach you this in school. Of course, they want everyone to be sick. They don't want anyone to actually understand how things work. But a big part of just basic sort of life is moving your body. And a lot of people in today's age with the phones and the computers and 9-to-5 jobs kind of forget that. So give us a little bit of your background on how you got into this whole physical training and your coaching and all those sort of things.
Yeah, well, see, I did it for a while, sort of pro bono. I was helping a lot of people out in the gym anyway. You know, I was training for 23 years. I mean, I picked up a weight when I was like 13 years old, and so it always, you know, physical training always resonated with me. But I started coaching people because I had used all of the, I guess, experience from failing and then trying again, failing and trying again, which, you know, you can't learn from a book. Even though, I mean, a lot of strength books will kind of give you the principles and kind of guide you, but you really need to spend all that time under the bar, you know, just like you do in yoga and in that sort of physical realm. And, you know, you have to experience it to really gain as much knowledge, because again, like when we were young, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have things to help us out with, you know, gaining knowledge in the strength training. So we had to ask either the biggest guy in the gym or the guy that looked like he knew the most. And that's how you learned. There was no really other way to learn at that point. But once we had the internet, it broke open a lot of the strength training principles that were taught in the early days, you know. And of course, we all know Arnold. He was the one who came out with the biggest sort of encyclopedia for training, and that's what people that were in their 40s back in the, you know, 80s and 90s were using. Even in the 70s, they were using it. But, you know, I didn't start paying attention to that kind of stuff, you know, until I actually hit the books a little bit. So I was sort of combining all of those years of experience under the bar, you know, along with, you know, all the books that I eventually read to, you know, kind of give me the knowledge bank that I needed to end up coaching, you know, and actually having a basis for that.
Yeah, and I should mention here for women who might be about to turn it off, oh, this is about guys and bodybuilding and weightlifting and all that. Totally not. My wife actually is a hardcore lifter. She embarrasses me. Like, I don't even go to the same gym as her at the same time because I look like just a total wuss. She's got her personal trainer and she's under the thing like screaming and putting out the last rep and all that. I rarely do it that hard. I'm a bit lazier. I put in, you know, I want to look nice. I want to feel good, but I don't need to put in the extra hardcore stuff that she does. But I'll tell you, when she doesn't go to the gym, she's a different person. She gets really like her moody. It really helps her to, you know, with the hormones and stuff like that. And so when she goes to the gym, she's just always in a good mood. And so for women as well, it's really important. And I've had numerous girlfriends, because I'm sort of like you, that I started training for the first. My dad was like a Canadian arm wrestling champion almost. He has like biceps like this, just kind of almost naturally. He's a freak of nature, and he always had, you know, he's about 75 now. He still bench presses and does curls. Those are the two exercises he only does. He does it every day though. He's still 75. He still bench presses over 200 pounds. He was around 300 pounds at his peak in his 40s and 50s, I guess. But you know, we always had the bench press machine in the house, and so I started working out a little bit when I was about 13, 14, same as you, and off and on throughout my life I've always been kind of doing it. I might go a year or two where I don't do it at all, but then I'll have numerous years where I do it all the time. So throughout my life I've been kind of doing it, and because of that I've gotten a lot of my past girlfriends into it as well, and every single time they go, oh, I don't think I'd like it. They go to the gym once or twice and they're just hooked, and they're like, if I don't go to the gym now I feel like crap. And it's totally true. And even Ron Paul, another good example, I was asking him, he's like 80 years old or something, and I was like, how do you have so much energy? And he's like, you know, I just get on the bike every day, and, you know, it gets those endorphins going and stuff like that. And a lot of people have kind of forgotten about that kind of stuff. So for you, this is common knowledge, but for a lot of people out there, it's kind of been forgotten how important it is just to do some physical exercise.
Yeah, and actually, Jeff, that was the reason why I was sort of falling into this, you know, depression early on in 2012. When I experienced that, I wasn't going at all. I stopped going, and then, you know, it was sort of cyclical at that point. Like that cycle just repeats itself. You stop going, your mood changes. You know, those endorphins are key in all this. So, you know, and it's funny you say, you know, that your wife got into it so intently like that. I would say, you know, at least I would say 75% of my clients are women. And I think what happens is, you know, we're sort of getting away from the whole body image focus and more sort of in tune with the body, you know, and how it makes us feel. And I think that is more reflective of what's happening, at least with strength training and women jumping into the sport at like an incredible rate now. They seem to be really excited about the changes they're making, because they're still they're making changes with their body, even though they're getting stronger. And that's awesome to see. and that's what I get excited about is when they send me progress pics. I'm like, this is awesome. Like you're progressing, everything's going great, and you're mentally healthy. Things are, in your life are starting to kind of develop. And it really is reflective of what, you do outside of the gym that makes all the difference, because you can leave the gym and still be stressed. But if you're not applying those things you're learning in the gym about, failure and keep, coming back in consistency, that won't reflect in your own life.
Yeah, totally. And there's so many things that are sort of related as well, right? Like I notice when I go to the gym, I just want to eat healthy afterwards. It's like it's not like, oh, I have to eat healthy. It's like my body craves the nutrients that it needs to rebuild the muscles and all that sort of stuff. Whereas if I don't go to the gym, I don't crave that stuff. In fact, I crave Big Macs and pizzas and all those sort of things. And so it actually changes how your body actually just functions. It's unbelievable. And I think, again, this kind of gets forgotten. A lot of people haven't talked about this a lot. And of course, you have the government indoctrination camps. I think they've taken like gym class out of most of those now, because they want to make sure that no one knows, how to be healthy. They just want them to be memorizing and sitting in those chairs 8 hours a day, which is absolute horror for a child. Like it's unbelievable that anyone allows their children to do that. But it's kind of almost like a bit of a lost knowledge, and it's so basic, right? Just get out, go for a walk, get out, lift some weights or go do a sport or something. Go catch a football or something. Go run around a little bit. Your body needs to move. But it's amazing how people can forget that. So for you, I think you were talking a little bit before we started talking about how you found this is even helping like kids with I forget what you said exactly. Some kids with problems. Like maybe you can give us some information on that. Yeah,
actually, I've started to work with kids with autism in the strength training and muscle development space and getting in the gym. I've worked with them for about 10 years in a different capacity. So this was a chance to kind of merge my knowledge of strength training with the knowledge of sort of, helping their development and teaching them. So I think, they need to move. They're not moving enough. And statistically, if you look at their diets aren't dialed in either. Their diets are pretty horrible, actually. So, there's a lot of science behind the importance of omega-3s for their brains, and getting enough good vitamins and micronutrients and things that they need as their baseline. When they eventually sort of turn their lifestyle around. And I've seen a bunch that have turned their lifestyle around just from the outside, and I'm in the process of sort of coming up with nutrition protocols for them. So that's kind of the next step with AnarchyLifting, is developing these nutrition protocols and strength training programs, and just basic stuff for them to kind of rotate around in circuit training, because circuit training, I think for some kids like them that have repetitive behaviors, well, what is repetitive behavior? It's a rep. So that's essentially what you're doing in the gym anyway. So it's easy for them to transition into that. But a little bit more difficult when it comes to the dieting and developing biomechanically their bodies to move a little bit more efficiently, which is also what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when you think about what governments and public schools do to kids. Like they put them in these prisons and make them sit there for 8 hours a day, which no kid is meant to do that. They're meant to be running around, exploring, discovering, all these kind of things. On top of that, as you just pointed out, like when are they even learning about nutrition? When are they even, like, for example, just doing a basic blood test with a kid and going, hey, you're deficient in this vitamin or that mineral? Never. They want you to be sick. It's sad. But here's the cool thing is when you wake up to this, at least you could protect yourself from it. And you could protect your friends and your kids and your family from it. And you can also try to spread this information so more people can wake up to it. But yeah, it's just amazing. Like everything in this culture, I call it cult, is basically upside down, and it was written about sort of in the Bible. The devil will make the entire world upside down with lies, and it kind of has been that way. And I'm not, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know what happens after this life or anything like that, but I do know that this has been talked about, and this is what is actually going on. for people out there, another interesting thing about you is you do a lot of this training online, which I actually, when you told me that, I was quite surprised. I'm like a physical trainer who does online training. I would have just assumed you'd have to be there, as a, like a spotter in the gym and that sort of a thing. But a lot of people are quite interested in this, and maybe you can give some of your experience on it, because a lot of people want to be able to work sort of remotely and be able to live wherever they want. And this is how I've lived my entire life. Everything I've done since at least my late 20s has been remotely on a laptop, basically. And so maybe you can give a bit of your experience doing that for people out there.
Yeah, and that actually, so far, it's had an easier transition than I thought it would. I didn't do a whole lot of online coaching previous to this, but I figured, with enough knowledge and enough conversations, I even Skype with my clients on a regular basis and make sure that everything's sort of dialed in. They send me technique videos, to make sure they're doing it correctly. I'm like a support system essentially for them during the week. So I'm constantly getting text, left and right. And I always want to make sure that I'm accessible. So I always have the notifications turned on. I'm making sure that if someone, has a question of something or is a little confused about something, at least either with nutrition or confused about anything in the gym, then, I can help them right, in that particular moment. Now, a lot of things that you can't do face to face, like, spotting and making sure that, they're going through the right amount of time in between the exercises and getting enough rest in between the exercises. That kind of thing can be adjusted. But a lot of times you have to trust that the client is going to, do what you need to do, what they need to do. And, you're able to kind of motivate them to stay, in that headspace and make sure that they're, accountable. And, that's one of the things that I always try to reiterate with them is, hey, there are going to be days where you're not going to want to feel like going and your body's going to be rejecting it. So, it's either because you didn't get enough sleep or you didn't get enough good food, or you were just, there was one of those days where you just, you weren't feeling it. So take one day down, understand that it's not the end of the world, that you can, basically hit, a great day the next day, and actually get really good work in if you get the amount of rest that your body needs, because your body's going to tell you. It has its way of communicating with you and telling you that, hey, slow down a little bit and, sort of be the tortoise, not the hare.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as the online training and coaching and stuff goes, I actually find this is so useful now that we have the internet. For example, if you saw at Anarchapulco, Johnny Dupre spoke, and he's actually basically my life coach. So he's sort of like you, but not for physical training, but for just anything in life. So I'll be like, I feel so fucked up, Johnny. Like, what do you think? And he's like, well, let's talk through this. What's going on? And I think it's so important that people have that. And nowadays with the internet, it's that's so easy to find, and it's also for entrepreneurs out there so easy to offer if you've got skills doing those sort of things. So even if you're a physical trainer, maybe you can do some online physical training with people and coaching on diet and things like that. And I've looked into a few other people that I'm going to be using for various things that are online trainers as well. It's amazing. And so many people will spend so much money watching movies every month, to go to the movie theater, and that's fine, if you want to live in a fantasy world or whatever, but and spend so much money on garbage and all kinds of just stuff, going to the bar and drinking lots, and that's kind of a waste of time for the most part too. But people aren't, if you just look at what you could be doing, you could be getting like a life coach, could be getting like a physical training coach, and all of it just like remotely, and probably not even all that expensive. I don't know what you charge, but usually it's not all that expensive for these sorts of things. It depends, of course, on the person and what on that sort of thing, but it's usually not too bad. And just to have those sort of things, and it's really important. It's sort of like your there's a word for it that I'm looking for. Sort of like your network, I guess you could say. Your support system is the word I was looking for. And, just having that. And it's great with the world today, like a physical trainer like yourself. I don't have to wait to go to the gym to talk to you. If I'm like, oh, I was going to make a smoothie and I was did I put too much of this powder in or this supplement? It's like just message you real quick and you can help out and stuff like that. And speaking of that, is there anything that you want to mention about things like supplements or even things like human growth hormones, steroids, those sort of things? I do a lot of those things myself personally. I was wondering your take on those.
Yeah, I get that question a lot, especially at least with the guys that I train with, and it's interesting because the average 50-year-old, at least growing up in this environment, is they're going to have low T, and unfortunately, that's a major problem that we're seeing. But again, it's everybody's choice what they want to put into their body. I never accuse anybody of hey, you're doing steroids, so you're a cheater. I never believed in that idea that you should land-base somebody for choosing to help their body in some way, give it a boost of some sort, especially for the people that are doing it responsibly, that are smart with the intake. If they're taking testosterone, you're doing it with the right amount of knowledge, and you're not reckless with it, then I absolutely support it. As far as the natural supplements, I always felt like the baseline to everything was your micronutrients. That's the thing that you need to have dialed in completely before you even start messing with, your carbs, your fats, and your protein. Because if you don't have that baseline, you don't have that, starting point, I like to call it. I mean, it's the horizontal part of the diet. It's what you have to keep consistent. Then your energy is going to suffer based on that. If you know where you're deficient and you can fix it, you're going to have a better advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I'm going at the end of this month to Arizona. I'm going to try NAD plus IVs. I don't know if you know what that is. It's called the Brain Booster or something IV. But while I'm up there, I got actually contacted by someone who's quite well known. He wrote a book. I don't want to say exactly who it is because I just met him and I might not meet up with him. But he's like a super holistic doctor, and he wants to do all my blood tests, check out my hair samples, all that kind of stuff, and find all those little maybe micronutrients that I might be missing, some minerals or things like that. And I think, like you said, it's really important. It's, again, something that people just don't even look into. They just wait till they get sick and they go to the doctor, and the doctor gives them some chemicals, and they eat those chemicals, and it gets rid of the symptoms but doesn't get rid of the problem. It's crazy. It's not even that hard to look after yourself. You just have to kind of do it. But it's amazing how few people even look into these sort of things. For the people who might have clicked on this video, they're into bodybuilding and stuff like that. I find bodybuilding very interesting, and you brought up at the start of this Arnold Schwarzenegger. I still think to this day he had the best body of all time. I don't think anyone's even come close, in terms of symmetry and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you're into bodybuilding, but I just know that I've seen over the last 10 years, you got all these guys with bubble guts and stuff. I was wondering if you had any opinions on what's going on in the bodybuilding world.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I think the perception of what we view as the perfect bodybuilding body, Arnold kind of embodied. And it used to be in the 70s and 80s, you were right, they were a little bit more symmetrical. Their V taper was a very noticeable, and these days it seems like either through maybe some of this over salt, salt intake, or just something that's happening. Maybe they're over supplementing in certain ways, and obviously, maybe obviously, it could come down to a lot of abuse of steroids. That could have a big effect on the appearance. But I always felt that the classic natural bodybuilding body was the bodybuilding body of the 70s. Those bodies you look at back then, the waist was, symmetrical, and everything just sort of, it looked like the ideal body that people aspired to. You wanted to look like Arnold. You don't necessarily want to look like some of these guys today, that, like you said, have that bubble gut look. And it's interesting that sort of changed. But because bodybuilding is so subjective, the judges are subjective, so who's to say that's a good body? At least with powerlifting, I always felt like, in strength training, you had an objective judge. You had somebody that could tell you, hey, you either didn't bench the weight, or you didn't squat the weight, or you didn't deadlift the weight. So there's no question there. There's no excuse. But with bodybuilding, it just seemed the sport's kind of taken a different turn, and I don't think a lot of people are. I think people are flocking away from it a little bit. But you start to see some of the people in the sport now. I think the guy's name is Caleb von Mager. He's one of the guys that's trying to bring that classic bodybuilding body back. And I think that's a good thing, because the more people that, aspire to be a little bit more healthy and symmetrical, or kind of following suit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely any sport that has judging is going to have problems because it's just humans and that sort of a thing. But yeah, I kind of agree with you that I like that old style a lot better. And you look at Arnie today compared to a lot of the other guys, like, for example, what's his name? Ronnie Coleman, who was like the top guy there for a while. Like, he can barely walk now. And even when he was like at his height of his career, he could barely walk up a flight of stairs. And it's like, that's just too much in my opinion. But it's his life. He could do whatever he wants, but that's just way too much. I always just thought like Arnold Schwarzenegger was really kind of right on about almost everything he did and how he did it, and he's still living a fairly healthy life as far as I know now, which a lot of those guys haven't afterwards because they've really blown up themselves through various ways and things like that. It's really unfortunate, but yeah, it's interesting. I guess another question just came to mind. There's a lot of anarchists who are vegan. And I've heard a lot about vegan lifters and stuff, and I get sent photos of these guys, and they look really ripped, and they're vegan, they say. Do you know anything about that? Is that possible to get like really big and ripped as a vegan, in your opinion?
I think a lot of the vegan bodybuilders have figured out a really good balance of what they need as far as supplementation and food. I think that with any diet, you can get strong and big if you do it right. There is no perfect diet, but at the same time, if you know that certain foods are going to help your body with muscle recuperation, then pick that diet. If you want to get really lean, then you're obviously going to stay away from grains. You're going to stay away from things that are going to inflame the gut. You're going to have a lot of success if you just know how to do it right, and I think that goes along with research. And you're not going to really find a lot of that information just Googling it either. I think a lot of people are scared to sort of just ask someone who has done a particular diet and had a particular goal in mind. Just ask the people that have done it before, that are experienced. The elite guys. They're so accessible today because of the internet. So if you feel like you want to contact one of these vegan bodybuilders and want to know more about how they built their bodies up through supplementation and diet, just inbox them. I mean, most of the time they're pretty open to talking about it. That's the thing, is I always felt like they were pretty, accessible regardless.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I think when you think about it just logically, you should be able to become pretty ripped and big as a vegan because, a lot of people say, well, they don't get enough protein, but you can get a lot of protein from vegetables, plus protein powders and all these sort of things. So I don't understand where that people come from, that you can't do it. And, I find it very interesting. This is something pretty new. I don't think we've seen, even 20 years ago, even one vegan bodybuilder. And now you see a bunch, and they look like they're pretty big and pretty ripped. So that's really cool if you can do it that way, and just very interesting to think about. So different ways of doing things, and we have a lot of information out there where we can do that now, and a lot of people like yourself who help train people. So why don't you let people know any last words you want to say? Not that this is a funeral or anything, but this is near the end of the interview. Anything you want to say, and also if you want to let people know about what you do, how they can contact you, or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to contact me for free consultations and just talk, and if anybody has a particular goal they're looking to achieve, by all means, I'll be usually most of my contacts are through Instagram and Facebook, and obviously through my website, AnarchyLifting.com. And usually just starts out as just sort of a hey, what are your goals? What are you looking to do? And then at that point, we sort of figure out what has worked in the past. If that person has done, a particular routine that they're comfortable with, but they still want to, push a little bit further forward, or if they want to try something completely out of their comfort zone and want to get into one of the, either strength training or bodybuilding or something like that, or if it's somebody just looking to lose weight. I mean, a lot of times, that's the majority of the people that, we're looking to make the lifestyle changes. They're looking to do simple things that just, completely, can transform the body, and it's real simple. It's just, you got to be consistent with it, and that's the key to it all. But yeah, they can find me on AnarchyLifting.com and also Instagram. Mostly, I'm putting up a lot of. I'm going to at least start putting up a lot of training tips and things like that, technique tips and things of that nature. So, yeah,
that's great. Yeah, actually, you brought up a good point about people. A lot of people want to lose weight. A lot of people are overweight and they want to lose weight. We didn't really talk about that too much. I guess I have like a lean frame to begin with. So there's a lot of pretty fat people like laughing at me right now, going, "Oh yeah, it's so easy to be lean" or whatever. I sort of like, I guess I'm just have a naturally sort of a lean frame, but. Like whenever I've gotten kind of fat, like kind of a nice little gut going, if I want to lose it, I find it so easy to lose. But again, that could be my genetics, and it could be it's just easier for me to lose weight. So, but what I've found is it's not that hard to lose weight. And I mean, maybe you think it is different, but I think of a lot of people out there who are overweight, they just don't understand a few basic things that they need to be doing. And maybe you could give a few pointers out there for people if they're having trouble losing weight.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with, energy balance, making sure that, you set your your caloric baseline of what you normally put into your body. At that point, you could form that baseline and figure out, okay, if I'm still gaining weight at this, the 3,000 calories here, well, then I got to scale it back. And how far do I scale it back is the question, because you don't want to scale it back too far to the point where you don't have the energy to train or, run or whatever you end up doing. But a lot of times it's finding that balance. And, I guess there's kind of an argument going on between either the calorie balance people or, is it more hormonal? It's hard to say, because I think the truth lies somewhere kind of in the middle. And there hasn't been enough, studies right now to say which way is better, whether you need to do intermittent fasting, which is a big thing now, obviously. We still need to figure out kind of, there's individual variants, so we have to factor that in. Everybody's body's different. Everybody takes nutrients in differently. Everybody, assimilates what they put into their body differently into their muscles. So we have to factor that in. But I think if people are looking for, the simplest way, I think you mainly start just kind of scaling back your calories a little bit and realizing the quality of the food you're taking in and the activity levels that you're actually, embarking on. Because again, like I had this, sit down 9-to-5 job at one point, and, obviously that was when I was at my heaviest, because, I'd go to the gym, but at the same time I was at least for 7-8 hours sitting. So it didn't really make a difference what I was doing, because I was taking in so many calories and not moving around for the rest of the day. So that had a huge impact. And actually it's funny because, right before the conference, I knew that I had like maybe a month and a half. So I just started scaling food back, scaling calories back, because I knew I'd be on the beach. So, but at the same time, if I want to get back into powerlifting, if I want to, hit a new bench record or a squat record, I'm going to take more calories in. I'm going to do it slowly and responsibly. And, because it requires that much more, caloric balance and calorie total. So I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle between, whether people want to use sort of intermittent fasting as a boost, that kind of metabolic reset, or if they want to do it, the classic way, which, a lot of the people in the past have done it, which is just scale back your calories.
Yeah, I'm a huge fasting fan, intermittent fasting. I actually have stopped just recently in the last few days, but I'd been doing it for like months and months and absolutely loved it. And for people out there, if you're a bit overweight and you're like scared of fasting, it's like, oh my God, if I miss a meal, I'll die. You really won't. Just focus on it and, just try it for a couple of days. And after a couple of days, it becomes quite easy. It's just, it's mostly a mental thing. We've been told in the government indoctrination camps and all that, we need our 3 square meals a day of, whatever meat board or cheese board or egg people are paying the schools to tell them to eat and stuff like that. But I see a lot of people and they're like, they think it's all scary, like, oh, intermittent fasting, like I can only eat like 8 hours a day, like I'll die. No, you won't. Just give it a shot and find people like Greg and people can support you or find groups, out there like intermittent fasting groups and, that could be your support network and just try things like that out. Definitely a bit of activity every day. You need it. Even if it's just a walk, just go for a walk. If you got dogs, that's the easiest thing. You can easily go for a walk. If you don't have dogs, get a dog. If you're having trouble just getting active, get a little dog and you have to go walk them. And then, just do some intermittent fasting and just don't eat garbage. And the whole thing, that's a whole other topic. I've had this on numerous times about parasites and how after a while of eating garbage, you've got all these parasites and they're the ones that actually they make you feel like you want the this garbage food, and you can get rid of parasites for things like coffee enemas and all kinds of stuff. And you know, there's so many things you can do, but the real key is just to focus on it. So if you're out there and if you want to do something, you absolutely can do it. It's not that hard. Greg, I rambled on a little bit there. Is there anything that you wanted to mention, or are we good? You want to leave it at that, or anything else?
No, absolutely. That's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, we kind of covered a lot, but that's the kind of thing you can talk about forever.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I love self-improvement stuff. I'm into so much. I got my infrared sauna right here. I've been doing that a couple of times a day. That's another good thing. Do you do that?
No, but I had somebody recently on Instagram who I'm friends with. He's actually a volunteerist, and he was doing some things with that, and he was also doing the cryotherapy, which I have to do that eventually. That is something that I'm really excited to do. Most of my recovery is sauna, steam, massage, things of that nature, but I want to kind of get a little bit more interesting, a little bit more risky with it.
Yeah, I've done the cryo thing. I went in London too. They just had a place where you can go, and yeah, it's really cool, really interesting. Apparently, you burn like 800 calories or something in like 5 minutes or something crazy, right? So that, again, if you're like overweight person, just do some cryo stuff, and it could be something as simple as just jumping into a cold pool of water, like once a day. That's what Tony Robbins does actually, and it could actually just kind of shocks your system, and it makes it burn all kinds of calories, and it also kind of like gets your brain all clear, your blood blowing, flowing. What did I say? Blood flowing. Obviously, my blood's not flowing very well. We should leave it at that. A real pleasure to have you on, Greg. And if you like this video, anyone out there who may be a bit overweight or depressed, get them to watch this video, because a big part of it is taking care of your body and the little things like diet. It's so basic, but a lot of people forgot this stuff. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
You ain't seen nothing yet.